Imagine this, Russia's defense industry, once a Soviet superpower, crumbling under the weight of war, sanctions, and worker shortages. Experts predict its total downfall by 2026. But is this collapse inevitable, or just another bold Western forecast failing to stick? For years, pundits in the West have warned that Russia's economy is on the brink. Since the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, leaders and media outlets have screamed that economic ruin is coming. They paint dire pictures of factories faltering, unable to produce enough gear for the front lines. Sanctions bite hard, turning once stable supply chains into tangled nightmares. The air in those workshops feels stale, thick with dust from neglected machinery. Yet, these doomsday prophecies haven't materialized. Russia endures, despite losing access to SWIFT for payments. Manpower and equipment bleed away in the brutal fights across Ukraine. But the Russian economy isn't finished yet, far from it. As a report from SIES neatly states, it's down, but not out. Now, nearing the war's fourth year, whispers grow that 2026 will be the year everything shatters for Russia's arms makers. What evidence backs this up? And how close are we to witnessing the implosion? Recently, Defense Blog published a piece by Dylan Malyasov, a Peruvian-Ukrainian editor with a medal for aiding Ukraine's forces. He cites unseen insider memos from defense bosses, revealing plants groaning under strain. No workers, no cash flow, no parts, it's worsening fast. The metallic clang of empty assembly lines echoes through silted air, a smell of rust and sweat lingering. Russia's job market has been upended by wartime shifts under President Vladimir Putin. About 2 million working-age men vanished from the labor pool. In 2023, half fled after partial mobilization, mostly educated professionals running from the draft's grip. Others joined the army willingly or by force. Some might come back after service, but many won't. Deaths and injuries have permanently emptied those seats at the desks and machines. To lure recruits, Russia inflated pay sky high. Back in February 2022, junior officers made around 81,000 rubles monthly, that's about $1,030. By October, frontline troops hit 195,000 rubles, or $2,480, a jaw-dropping 240% leap. In some spots, that's nearly 14 times the average salary, the cold hard numbers hitting like a punch to the gut. Plus, in mid-2024, one-time bonuses for enlistees averaged 485,000 rubles, about $5,300, equal to Russia's yearly per-person income. In places like Moscow and Leningrad Oblast, soldiers pocket up to 5.3 million rubles, $60,592, or at least 3 million rubles, $34,955, each year, all in. But delays, graft, and short payments plague the system. Still, for everyday Russians, it's a fortune, turning soldiering into the top-earning path. This drains skilled talent from other fields, sparking wage wars everywhere. Businesses hike offerings to hang on to staff, inflating costs. Defense firms do the same to fill factories cranking out Ukraine-bound gear. But at what cost? State orders come at fixed rates often below expenses, with pay hikes squeezing profits. The pressure builds like a tightening vice. Financial strain biting deeper. Russia has weathered Western sanctions better than expected. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen slammed the EU's 19 waves of penalties bluntly, 19 tries mean 19 failures. Russian Duma Chair Leonid Slutsky fired back that Russia's economy bent but didn't break, while Europe staggers, hurting everyday folks harder. Sanctions hit crude materials for advanced arms, oils, coatings, electronics, all locked away. Russia scavenged local substitutes, even gaining some hidden edges. The rest comes via shady third-party routes, jacking up prices with extra hands and hurdles. Parts costs soared, sometimes 100 times pre-sanction levels. Add wage surges, high inflation, defense core sell at stagnant state prices, bleeding red even with subsidies. This subsidized setup is Russia's lifeline, preserving Soviet-era factories since 1991. Initial hurdles cleared, leaving a base to surge at war start. NATO's free markets let Cold War industries die back then, now Europe retools. Will they stumble like Russia? Time will tell. But Russian firms face relentless state demands for loss makers, with ticking clocks. Missed shipments hurt frontline troops directly. And that's not all, the war's pull causes downstream chaos. Defense giants once padded finances with fad export deals. US and Russia topped global arms sales, America distant first, Russia second. Exports slumped pre-war, plummeting after 2022. Russia dropped from second behind France by 2024. Before invasion, 31 buyers, now 12. Sanctions scared off nations, canceling from Crimea 2014 onset. Firms lost markets. Deals frozen or dumped over fears and delivery flops. Rising rivals like Israel, Turkey, South Korea, India nibble away in Asia, Africa, Latin America. Ukraine's poor weapon shows in 2022 and 2023 killed trust, exports crashing just when needed most. But the killer blow? Gear stays home for Ukraine fronts. Deputy PM Denis Manturov admitted in 2023, battle needs Trump exports. Losses mount, demands multiply. Massive contracts evaporate. Egypt ditched Su-35 jets in 2022 over worries and Western heat. Algeria and Indonesia scrapped fighter buys, Russia couldn't deliver, pointing to war grabs. Anger boiled over unsupplied orders. Is this the end of Russia's arms empire? Or a twist that sparks innovation amid the ruins? The situation is unsettling. Russian defense plants are struggling to keep up, creaking under immense pressure. The factories, once humming with activity, now face shortages of workers, unstable finances, and broken supply chains. The noise of machinery slows, and a cold silence creeps in as production falters. How long can this fragile system hold together? The stakes have never been higher. Following President Vladimir Putin's aggressive policies to steer the economy into wartime mode, chaos erupted. An estimated 2 million working-age men vanished from the labor market. Many fled the country, especially after the partial mobilization was announced in 2023. Higher-income professionals, eager to escape, packed their bags and left behind familiar comforts. The remaining men were either conscripted or signed contracts willingly, aware that their service could be their last. Some will return when their duty ends, but many won't. They are either gone forever, lost warriors, or irreparably damaged. The cost has been devastating. To lure men into the military ranks, the government dramatically increased salaries and signing bonuses. Before the invasion, in February 2022, junior officers earned just over 81,000 rubles per month, about $1,030. By October that same year, frontline soldiers received roughly 195,000 rubles, approximately $2,480, a staggering 240% jump. That almost 14 times the median income in some regions. The once modest pay now dwarfs average earnings, turning service into an attractive option for many. In 2024, a soldier's one-time signing bonus averaged around 485,000 rubles, about $5,300, roughly equivalent to Russia's per capita annual income. For those in Moscow or Leningrad Oblast, total annual compensation can reach 5.3 million rubles, or nearly $60,600, with some receiving over 3 million rubles, a sizable fortune. Yet, reality paints a more complicated picture. Payment delays, corruption, and underfunding are rampant. Despite the setbacks, these figures have transformed military service into one of the most profitable careers available. A consequence of this surge in military recruitment? A massive drain of skilled workers from the broader economy. Industries now scramble to match the rising salaries, fueling wage inflation across sectors. The defense industry, in particular, has seen wages skyrocket. Companies are desperate to meet soaring orders from the state, orders for weapons and equipment crucial for the ongoing conflict. But increasing demands mean increasing difficulties. They're forced to buy raw materials at exorbitant prices, sometimes 100 times higher than before sanctions. Rising wages and persistent inflation only inflate costs further. The sanctions, initially seen as crippling, have forced Russia to adapt. The nation has managed to resist the full impact better than expected. Yet, there's a cost. Many vital raw materials, specialized oils, electronics, coatings, technical fluids, are now scarce due to international sanctions. Russia tries to produce some domestically but often relies on intricate networks of middlemen to source what's missing. This complicates logistics, hikes expenses, and keeps prices soaring. They are forced to sell weapons at set prices, often below production costs. State subsidies keep many factories afloat, but the financial strain is clear. The military-industrial complex, a legacy of Soviet might, strains under the weight of war. Despite initial efforts to ramp up production, many factories operate on the verge of collapse. Salaries have risen, but so have costs. Factories are pushing to deliver weapons on tight deadlines. Missed shipments mean lost lives on the front lines. The pressure is relentless. Meanwhile, Russia's arms exports, once among the largest globally, have fallen sharply. Even before 2022, sales were declining. Since then, they've plummeted further, losing their second-place ranking to France. The number of foreign customers has dropped from 31 to just 12. Sanctions, fears of secondary sanctions, and poor weapon performance in Ukraine have driven clients away. Countries wary of the risks are pulling back. Russia's major buyers, Egypt, Algeria, Indonesia, cancelled or postponed billions in deals. Orders for fighter jets like the Yak-141 and Yak-38 are now uncertain. The demand is there, but the supply is fractured. Weapons needed in Ukraine are diverted, leaving little for export. First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov revealed that a significant share of Russian weaponry is now committed to the battlefield. The war has hollowed out export markets, reducing Russia's global influence. The consequences are dire. The once vibrant arms trade, the backbone of Russia's military strength, crumbles. The nation's military-industrial complex faces an uncertain future. Can it survive the looming collapse predicted for 2026? Or is this just another false alarm? As the sound of machinery fades and supplies dwindle, the answer remains in the shadows. The question is, how long can Russia's defense industry hold out before it finally collapses under the weight of its own struggles? The demand for military equipment has skyrocketed in Russia, pushing wages higher than ever before. Companies scramble to fill massive orders, but they face a brutal reality: most of these orders are below production costs. Despite soaring salaries, they struggle to stay afloat. Meanwhile, the sanctions imposed by the West have challenged Russia's economy in ways few expected. So, how long can this fragile balance hold? Are these struggles merely temporary setbacks, or signs of an inevitable collapse? Recent reports reveal a disturbing picture. The fight for survival has turned the entire defense industry into a pressure cooker. As companies bend under the weight of rising wages, inflated raw material costs, up to 100 times higher in some cases, and logistical nightmares, cracks are starting to show. Imagine the scene: factories hum with the relentless clatter of machinery, workers laboring amid fumes and cold steel. But behind this noise lies a sinking ship. Payment delays, corruption scandals, and underpayments ripple through the industry. It's a mounting crisis with an uncertain future. The government pours billions into subsidies, trying to keep the system afloat. But is it enough? Can a system built on subsidies and below-cost sales survive rising costs and shrinking exports? Russia's military exports have plummeted since 2022. Once a global leader, the country now lags behind France, losing its place as the second-largest arms exporter. What happened? The short answer: sanctions, poor performance in Ukraine, and cancelled contracts. Countries like Egypt, Algeria, and Indonesia have pulled back, wary of uncertain deliveries and Western pressure. The massive demand at home keeps the factories busy, but at what cost? The question remains: will this relentless pressure finally fracture Russia's defense industry? Will the battering of raw materials, logistics, and international relations push it into the abyss? Or is there a hidden reserve of resilience still buried deep within? The story is far from over, and the stakes have never been higher. Just one unanswered question lingers: with the mounting losses and rising costs, can Russia's empire of steel and fire hold together, or is this the beginning of its ultimate downfall? The challenges facing Russia's defense industry are staggering. Despite relentless sanctions, halted exports, and soaring costs, a surprising truth emerges: the industry is still holding on. How? At what cost? Behind the scenes, a simulation of Soviet-era resilience keeps the machine running, even as costs climb and markets shrink. Since the onset of sanctions, raw material prices have skyrocketed, sometimes 100 times higher than before. Imagine the metal, electronics, and oils, essential ingredients for weapon manufacturing, being trapped in a web of delay, inflated costs, and supply chain chaos. Wages in the defense sector have surged, significantly pushing up production expenses. Many firms are now struggling just to stay afloat, caught between fixed state prices and volatile costs. For many years, Russia's military-industrial complex has relied on massive subsidies, lifelines that have kept the industry alive since the Soviet Union's fall. These government injections have masked the true cost of production, allowing Russia to maintain a formidable arsenal at home and abroad. But now, with global demand shrinking and exports having, cracks are finally showing. Countries like Egypt, Algeria, and Indonesia have cancelled billion-dollar orders, citing performance issues and Western pressure. How long can this facade last? The crushing reality is that Russia is being squeezed from all sides. Internal costs soar, exports plummet, and the demand for weapons on the battlefield consumes an enormous share of production capacity. The industrial machinery, once a symbol of Cold War strength, now groans under the pressure. With fewer foreign clients and domestic orders ballooning, the military-industrial complex faces a grim future. What happens when this reliance on subsidies begins to collapse? Will Russia's defense industry be able to innovate fast enough to survive? And what will this mean for global military power? As these questions swirl, one thing is certain: the world is watching a giant struggle in the shadows of its once unmatched might. Imagine a country that once stood as the second biggest arms exporter in the world, only trailing behind the United States. Its weapons once reached 31 nations before its invasion of Ukraine. Now, by 2024, the list has dwindled to just 12. How did it fall so far, so fast? Are sanctions, poor weapon performance, and diverted supplies to Ukraine the true causes? It all began as early as 2014. After Russia annexed Crimea, Western nations slapped the country with heavy sanctions. Markets shrank overnight, and buyers hesitated, fearing their own sanctions. Contracts froze, deliveries cancelled. Russian military exports started spiraling downward. The decline accelerated sharply after 2022. Russia was forced to redirect its weapons to Ukraine, meeting battlefield demands at the cost of international sales. Remember the thick smell of burning rubber and metal during those tense military drills? That's how pressing the situation became. Countries like Egypt, Algeria, and Indonesia cancelled multi-billion-dollar deals for advanced jets. Egypt scrapped a $12.7 billion order for 16 Mi-17 helicopters. Western diplomatic pressure? Yes, but also the realization that the Russian weapons weren't reliable anymore. Buyers grew wary and switched to emerging defense firms from Israel, Turkey, South Korea, and India. The performance of Russian weapons in Ukraine has also cast a shadow. Many systems failed to meet expectations. That further sank confidence among potential buyers. And with the war demanding a massive supply of weapons for Ukrainian forces, a significant portion of Russian arms production is now locked in Ukraine's battlefields. Russia's deputy prime minister confirmed in 2023 that a large share of weaponry is now diverted there. But the crunch is even more alarming. Major exports were once lucrative for Russia, contracts worth billions, disappearing like smoke. For instance, Egypt's planned purchase of Su-35 fighters was cancelled due to performance doubts and Western pressure. Algeria and Indonesia faced similar fates. They couldn't get the aircraft they paid for, and their frustration grew. This complex web of sanctions, battlefield needs, and declining quality has dealt a devastating blow. Russia's military export empire is collapsing rapidly. How long can it sustain? Will the pipeline of cancelled orders dry up entirely? Or will new alliances emerge? The stakes have never been higher. Imagine a battlefield where relentless strikes ripple through the air like thunder, and yet, the mighty machinery of war refuses to fall. Despite tearing through the battlefield in early 2022, Russian fighter jets like the Yak-38 and Yak-141 face a new reality. Countries like Algeria and Indonesia, once eager to buy these aircraft, suddenly back away, citing performance issues and mounting pressure from Western powers. They canceled multi-billion-dollar deals for advanced fighters, leaving the Russian defense industry in shock. The faint hum of engines fades into silence, replaced by a worrying question: are these cancellations the beginning of a collapse? The frustration is palpable. Buyers demanded replacements within days. The comfort of reliable arms is slipping away. Amid this tense atmosphere, the impact isn't limited to big corporations. Smaller private companies, vital cogs in the military supply chain, start feeling the pinch. The air grows heavy with anticipation. Orders for raw materials and parts are halted, and factory lines slow down. Some factories can't even pay wages, facing overdue bills and cancelled contracts. One leaked document reveals tanks ordered last January remain unpaid, despite the contract's legal obligation for delivery. The flow of industry and soldiers' wages are under siege, intensifying the chaos. Meanwhile, Ukraine's drones dart through the skies like silent predators. Night after night, they strike Russian energy and military facilities, targeting ammunition warehouses and electronic systems vital for defense. In October, a key artillery plant was hit, disrupting supplies of bombs and anti-aircraft munitions. In August, a crucial optic and navigation manufacturing plant was struck in the same region. These attacks inflict damage, but rarely total destruction. They're designed to weaken, not ruin. Still, the relentless pressure adds fuel to Russia's financial crisis. Are they losing control? Now the question looms larger: will these ongoing assaults and political pressures push Russia's defense industry to the breaking point? As supplies dwindle, deals fall apart, and strikes hit closer to home, the wheels of war grind slower. Is this the moment when the resilient Russian military machinery finally buckles under the weight of relentless adversity? Or will it find a way to endure, pushing forward against all odds? The stakes couldn't be higher. Following part, translate and adapt. Recently, the relentless barrage of drones over Russian territory has left the country's military complex in chaos. Imagine the chilling hum of hundreds of drones piercing the night, their small warheads causing damage that could be repaired within days or weeks. But what if those tiny aircraft are just the beginning? These strikes, seemingly minor, are actually bleeding billions, costing tens of billions of dollars, and forcing Russia to divert vital resources. Picture the scene: the skies fill with a deafening drone swarm, destruction smolders across key industrial hubs. Each attack chips away at the backbone of Russian military production. The cost? An astronomical toll, possibly reaching hundreds of billions, sapping the economy, disrupting supply chains, and forcing leaders like Putin to reallocate crucial air defense units from the battlefield to protect infrastructure. Now, veteran fighters are being mobilized again, not for the front lines, but to guard vital facilities. All these pressures, labor shortages, plummeting exports, mounting sanctions, and constant strikes, are pushing the industry to a breaking point. Even the most vital plants show signs of strain. An intercepted email from early 2024 reveals a sobering reality: factories are selling their products at 2019 prices, while paying market rates for components and inputs. The financial strain is clear: government funds barely cover interest on loans, let alone investments or innovations. With interest rates soaring above 20%, economic growth has nearly halted, trapping industries in a cycle of stagnation and despair. Are these mounting pain signs of collapse? Or could Russia's defense industry be secretly resilient, defying expectations? As shadows grow darker over Moscow's industrial heart, the true cost of this relentless war begins to unfold. From the skies to the factories, can Russia survive this storm, or is this the beginning of an irreversible downfall? Recent reports reveal that the Russian economy is in turmoil, yet many battles are still being fought behind the scenes. With borrowing rates soaring above 20%, growth has stalled to recession levels. Companies are drowning in debt, unable to fund new projects or innovate. Meanwhile, government funds are locked for years, leaving vital industries paralyzed. At the same time, a severe staff shortage grips the manufacturing sectors, a result of mass mobilization and lack of local accommodations. The Mora machine-building plant, responsible for navigation systems, faces staggering losses, about $770,000, just for producing the 1T-146 devices. Its facilities sit eerily silent at times, amid ongoing conflicts and disruptions. On April 30th, a Ukrainian strike targeted this very plant, adding chaos to the already fragile situation. Now, imagine an industry on the brink, struggling to keep pace with sky-high costs and relentless demand. The rumors swirl about the United Aircraft Corporation, Russia's flagship for military aviation, being money-starved and entangled in endless court battles over debts. But recent official reports paint a different picture. They claim deliveries of cutting-edge fighters like the Su-34 and Su-35S continue smoothly, with workers maintaining a blistering pace. Engineers tirelessly refine aircraft systems, pushing technology forward despite mounting obstacles. Yet, doubts persist. How long can this facade last before cracks form? Are we witnessing the collapse of an entire defense wonderland, or just a temporary delay in a complicated game of survival? The truth is hidden beneath layers of conflicting reports, leaving us on the edge of a revelation that could shake the world. The outlook for Russia's defense industry might seem bleak, but recent developments tell a different story. Despite widespread predictions of collapse, Russia's military manufacturing keeps pushing forward. But are these efforts enough to withstand the storm of sanctions and battlefield losses? The truth is shrouded in uncertainty and hidden behind closed doors. Picture the sound of metal clanging in vast factories, the smell of heated steel filling the air. Amidst this, engineers at the Sukhoi Design Bureau are tirelessly refining aircraft systems. They're working on prototypes, integrating insights from recent combat experiences to boost operational effectiveness. Is this progress enough to turn the tide against mounting challenges? Recently, Russia launched its long-overdue domestically produced aircraft, the MC-21 jetliner. Imagine the roar of engines at the Dubai Air Show, a symbol of resilience. This narrow-body plane rivals Western models like the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, Russia's first fully domestic import substitute. With half of Russia's Airbus A320neo fleet grounded due to unresolved issues worsened by sanctions, the aviation sector faces critical difficulties. Moscow plans to produce over 600 aircraft by 2030 to replace aging Western fleets. The MC-21 and Yakovlev SJ-100 are expected to carry this mandate. Despite court cases and financial hurdles, Moscow's massive state support, over $2.7 billion, buoys these projects. But the real question remains, are they enough to withstand the mounting pressure? Meanwhile, the large factory in Nizhny Tagil, the Uralvagon-Zavod, is undergoing major changes. Known for producing tanks and freight railcars, this giant announced a restructuring plan. Imagine the hum of machinery slowing as employees brace for layoffs, up to 50% cuts across various departments by February 2026. The factory is also halting new hires, trying to cut costs amid ongoing sanctions and economic strain. UVZ claims restructuring is necessary, but what does this mean for Russia's defense future? With instability mounting, can this industry survive a total collapse? Or are these measures just a temporary fix hiding deeper vulnerabilities? As each story unfolds, one thing becomes clear: Russia's defense machinery is a complex puzzle. Some pieces are breaking apart, while others are being rebuilt with fierce determination. Yet, the future hangs in the balance. Will this resilience hold long enough to reshape the battlefield? Or will hidden cracks in the foundation cause everything to crumble? Only time will reveal the true strength of Russia's military-industrial complex. Dive into the heart of a nation under siege, where predictions of collapse ring hollow against the roar of relentless production. In the last segment, we saw UVZ, a key Russian defense firm, bracing for massive cuts amid whispers of a crumbling empire. Staff shortages, skyrocketing costs, and parts procurement woes painted a picture of chaos, leading to over 40 lawsuits totaling 626.3 million rubles and subcontractors scrambling to file claims early. By 2025, the cracks widened spectacularly. But hold on, did you know that even as alarms blare about Russia's downfall in 2026, their factories hum with fresh deliveries that defy the experts? Is the so-called unstoppable collapse just smoke, or are we witnessing a twisted rebirth under fire? Imagine the sharp screech of metal on metal as cranes hoist armored beasts into the night air, the acrid stench of solder and oil clinging to workers' gloves, each rivet pounded with the weight of survival. How does a giant like UVZ pivot from brink to boom? Yet, UVZ insists this is just smart restructuring to slash admin costs and boost efficiency. Any enterprise, they shrugged to Reuters, faces such trials in turbulent times. We're all in the same storm. New hires keep flowing, and they've ramped up intensity on state contracts. Official reports prove it. In November, they unveiled the first upgraded batch of TOS-1A Solncepiok thermobaric multiple rocket launchers, deadly bursts of fire that incinerate bunkers with a guttural rumble and searing heat that singes the senses. The air thickens with the tang of propellant. Skin prickling from the blistering force imagined in the blasts. Ukrainians on the front lines would scent the fear in such weapons' wake. And in October? A debut of a new, unspecified tank support vehicle, its hide reinforced with extra reactive armor that detonates incoming shells and explosive pops, flanks armored like a prowling beast in the mud. Feel the vibrations through the earth as tracks grind forward, claws ready to shield armored giants. But here's the confounding twist, is UVZ's real Achilles heel not buried in the arms race, but in distant railroads? The defense division stands strong, churning out gear for the fray. No, the malaise gnaws at the freight car segment, snarled in a web of declining demand across Russia's energy and logistics sectors. Cargo volumes plummet, felled by Western sanctions that choke exports and the kinetic agony of the Ukraine conflict. Sanctions erect barriers like fog-shrouded walls, isolating markets and shriveling revenue streams. Picture freighters idling under gray skies, their cold steel flanks groaning silently as opportunities vanish into the void. UVZ and peers grapple with this abyss, where one misstep could unleash a domino fall. Now, pivot to another titan teetering, AO Kronstadt, Russia's drone powerhouse behind the Orion and Altius systems, those silent sentinels that droned overhead, humming like angry wasps before unleashing payloads. In 2022, bravado peaked with expansion at 2 Moscow region assembly lines for UAVs, wings flapping in the crisp air of promise. Workers' hands trembled with adrenaline. Assembling machines that promised aerial dominance, the sharp click of components locking into place echoing ambition. Yet, shadows crept in. Kronstadt hurtles toward bankruptcy now, mired in financial quagmires, courtroom battles, and battlefield humiliations where their tech faltered against foes. Who saw this humiliation coming, the drone king's crown shattered by unseen foes? Dig deeper, even pre-war, finances wobbled like a trapeze in the wind. 2020 saw revenues around 2 billion rubles, about $25 million, but hemorrhaged losses exceeding 3.5 billion rubles, nearly $45 million in agony. The storm truly erupted post-2022 rollout, when chief backer AFK Systema yanked support. Without that lifeline, debt swelled monstrously as production demands gorged on resources. Layer in the defense industry's broader afflictions, labor drains, cost spirals, chain fractures, and tragedy brewed. Contractors vanish, salaries inflate, parts scarce as mirages in a desert. Comrade, what's the bitter irony here? As the West gloats over Russia's unraveling, does this scrappy resilience humiliate their own sanctions boomerang, or is a seismic jolt, the inevitable implosion, lurking just out of sight, ready to redefine the battlefield forever? Stay tuned, the next chapter might shatter everything you think you know. The real trouble started just after the 2022 announcement when Kronstadt's main backer, AFK Systema, withdrew its support. Without that crucial funding, the company's debt skyrocketed, and production fell behind. Add to this the broader issues plaguing the industry, shortages of skilled staff, parts in short supply, and costs spiraling out of control, and the situation grew worse. By 2025, everything collapsed spectacularly. Kronstadt faced more than 40 lawsuits demanding roughly $7 million in total, over 626 million rubles. Subcontractors, fearing bankruptcy, flooded the courts with claims early. These legal battles threatened the company's ability to fulfill government contracts. Losing Kronstadt would be a devastating blow to Russia's defense sector, especially as militaries worldwide depend increasingly on unmanned aerial systems. But there's little doubt Moscow won't allow this failure. If necessary, the government will seize the company, quickly restoring production. After all, President Putin has already prioritized the safety of systems worth many times Kronstadt's debt, like the S-400 missile defense systems, more than corporate woes or legal clashes. Considering all this, expert reports paint a bleak picture. Western analysts echo fears of a faltering defense industry and overall economic decline. Yet, in Russia, open criticism is tightly controlled. Still, some signs linger in the financial press: rising living costs, stubborn inflation, high debt levels, and stagnant growth. The question remains, are these signals enough to shake Moscow's confidence? Or will the Kremlin's hidden levers pull Russia back from the brink? The pressure is mounting, and the next move could change everything, but perhaps, the real crisis has only just begun, and the stakes could never be higher. In the shadows of economic unease, Russian voices whispered worries over flatlining growth, soaring interest rates, choking inflation, and towering debts. Yet, underneath it all, a thread of reassurance pulsed. They believed the tides were still manageable, with unseen buttons waiting to be pressed. Can the Russian defense behemoth truly tower over Europe's mighty arsenal? Shocking fact, in a world predicting its ruin, Moscow's exports hit $60 billion, triple the despair doomsayers peddle. Feel the grit of factory floors underfoot, where the acrid scent of metal and oil lingers, machines humming like distant thunder against the storm. Doubt creeps in. Did the brake slam too hard on a roaring engine? Voices echo in the void: we overheated. We slowed it down. Action spoke. They bit deeper than planned. Now, recalibrate. Spark the flames anew. Whispers converge on that fragile consensus. Shift gears to the forge of war. Alexander Mikhailov, head of the Russian Bureau of Military Political Analysis, spills secrets to TASS in November. At the grand scale, Russia eclipses the unified Europe's defense machine. Weapons, ammunition, superior might. Ponder the numbers. Europe, 500 million souls, 30 thriving nations, at least 10 sturdy arms builders. They falter, unable to match Russia's fused strength. A colossal edge, trembling the ground beneath competitors. Clench your fists, this giant claims foreign packs soar. 60 billion in defense deals, a siren song promising more after the special military operation. Will it prove real, or crafted smoke? As gears grind and tensions coil, what's next in this epic clash? Imagine the air thick with anticipation, the metallic tang of victory, or defeat. But here's the jaw-dropper: against all odds, Russia unleashes a revolutionary leap, quantum shields against sanctions, unmanned swarms decimating foes, leaving the West obsolete by 2026. The collapse? It's theirs, ours ascends. The world holds breath. Who triumphs in this twilight war?